Hi, welcome to this edition of the weekly production series here at Ratliff Mandolins, where we are following a batch of 11 mandolins through the construction process. Last week I promised you two separate things, and unfortunately I'm only going to be able to fulfill one of those promises. I promised first of all to give you a tour and an explanation of the binding jigs, the stations there where we wrap the binding on and secure the binding to the mandolin. And I also promised you a video installing the necks. But unfortunately, due to excessively high phone volume and visitors, I had a dental appointment to deal with and one trip to town to run some errands. I did not get any necks put in this week. But what I did get was, on all of the blanks, I got the truss rod slot cut, the truss rod pocket, the truss rod nut pocket has been cleaned up and ready to go, and I got the ears glued on. So all of the necks that we have are in this state right here, and we'll run the video for installing these necks and building them next week. This week I'll go ahead and fulfill promise number one, which was the tour of the binding stations. So let's run that video right now. I have 4 of these binding stations right here, and let's just start with the first one and how they were built and how they were developed. First thing I did was, with the block anchors, anchored a 2x10 to the block wall, as you can see, and then we took another 2x10 and attached it to this 2x10 with a little bit of a notch and some shelving brackets, and really and truly that's all that's holding that thing up, and it's lasted for 25 years, so it's works pretty well, pretty stable. I've drilled some holes in the top, as you can see, just as for tool holders, and everything works pretty well. So let's start with this first one, which is designed to wrap the binding on the tops. There's a metal brackets, it's sawed to shape. It's oversawn with some notches in it, as you can see. These are the attachment bolts that attach it into that 2x10, and then this little 1/2-inch bolt right here slips right down into the neck joint, and everything just fits right in place. As you can see, that is mandolin number 9, and those little slots around the edge are there to hook the string in, and I know you've watched this several times on these past videos. You just wrap back and forth until you get your piece of binding wrapped on. Now this was the first one that I built, and the first thing that I noticed was that the string would slip off of the bottom of these notches lots of times, and I cut little grooves in the bottom of the notches, and that helped a whole lot, but nevertheless it's still an issue, enough so that when I built the one to do the backs, and if you'll notice here the scroll is on this side and here the scroll is on the other side, this is the one to do the backs. There's a ring so that the belly of the top, let me grab a mandolin here so you can see. By the way, this is mandolin number 2 in the batch, so that the mandolin lays down in there and the belly of the top fits down into that empty spot right there in the ring, and everything lays nice and flat. So back to these things right here. When I built this one, I put 1/4-inch bolts in. So I just drilled holes and put a 1/4-inch bolt in there, and the string, of course, once it's wrapped around that 1/4-inch bolt, has a lot less tendency to come off. So that does the top of the mandolins before the neck is put on, and this does the back of the mandolins after the neck and the back has been installed. This next one here, I took some ductwork from the local box hardware store, one of the big box hardware stores, and filled it full of concrete, believe it or not. And when I did, I put one of these, which is a concrete anchor bolt, put it in there about yay high. You see, put two of them in there, and you can see there's a nut down there on top of the plywood that screws into this part, and the whole thing is anchored down. This is for the A models. It's got little brackets up here to hold the instrument, and we will show you, and another 1/2-inch bolt right here that will fit right into the neck joint on mandolin number 6, just to show you. And the mandolin fits in there really well. And I also use this one to do the backs. And when I do, I have a ring, much like this one had a ring. I have a ring that fits down in there, so that you have an airspace for that belly to lay in, and everything rests in there pretty flat. So that's the story on the A model one. Now the story on this one, extra one that I have over here, is that a friend of mine built a couple of mandolins, and I kind of guided him along a little bit, and he built this jig and asked me if I wanted it afterwards, and I said, well, sure, I'll take it. And the only big difference between this one and the A model one is that instead of 1/4-inch bolts, he used nails. And you know what? They work just fine. So, you know, and a lot cheaper than the 1/4-inch bolts, I'm sure. And I don't know if you've noticed, but this one can be turned over as well. It's got brackets on the top and on the bottom. We can just turn this one over and use it to do left-handed mandolins. This stand that it's on is a big piece of 1/2-inch steel with a big pipe welded on with another flange on the bottom. And I used to use that stand to engrave with, and then I got a whole new engraving set up, and the stand was sort of sitting there idle, so that when he gave me that thing right there, I just bolted it on that stand, and now I have 4. I can do 2 F model tops there and there. I can do A model top or back, and I can do a back of an F model here all at the same time. So it's not a bad setup, and I'm kind of happy with what I've got here. So there's that. Hey, be sure to join us next week when we will indeed install some necks in our mandolins, and we'll look for you then. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. We appreciate that, and we'll see you in future videos.